Should the Mets, and I think that's the big question here, that's what we're really trying to get to, is should the Mets fire Carlos Beltran? All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you, and, well, we got a very important subject to talk about, and that, of course, revolving around baseball's decision to levy penalties on the Houston Astros, and eventually they're going to levy penalties on the Boston Red Sox for the sign-stealing scandal that took place in 2017 and again in 2018. And this also has a direct effect on the New York Mets, and we all know what that's all about, involving Carlos Beltran, who is now the manager of this baseball team. Now, first of all, you have to give a lot of credit to Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball for stepping up to the plate and levying some discipline here. This was something they could not sweep under the rug, for as intricate as the Astros did this, from garbage cans and cameras and Apple Watches, everything they could use as far as technology and whatever they could grab their hold of to try to steal signs from opposing teams. They had to be stopped. It was unacceptable, and of course they did that even during a World Series in 2017. Couldn't allow that to happen. And, of course, the suspensions of A.J. Hinch and Jeff Lunhow were very much warranted. Alex Cora could be in similar trouble right now with Red Sox. He was pretty much the ringleader of this operation in 2017 with the Astros when he was a bench coach there, going out of the way and arranging the video room to set up the camera in center field to steal the signs. And, of course, then going ahead and doing a similar thing in Boston as well, which is still being investigated. We don't know what the result of that's going to be yet. But either way, he is probably going to get suspended, if not fired, by the Boston Red Sox in the coming days, if not a couple of weeks, as we're just, 3 or 4 weeks away from spring training. The big thing is going to be, what about Carlos Beltran? Baseball decided not to suspend him for any length in time, even though he is mentioned in the report, and it's right there on page 2, top of page 2. I'll read it to you. Approximately 2 months into the 2017 season, a group of players, including Carlos Beltran, discussed the team could improve on decoding opposing team signs and communicating the signs to the batter. Right there, Beltran is mentioned in the report, and that he was very much in knowing of what was going on. Manfred decided not to suspend him. He decided not to suspend any players from that season from that team because he had made the promise not to do so. Really, you have a lot of players who are all over the map. They're on different teams now. Some of them may have been more involved than others. You really don't know. So, you can understand it from that standpoint. But the fact is, Carlos Beltran is mentioned here. Yes, he was a player back then in 2017, but it seems like he was a willing participant and was very much in knowing of what was going on. Not to mention, Beltran has lied already on this situation, and he lied to the press when asked about it by Joel Sherman of the New York Post a couple months back when he was first hired by the Mets to become the manager, and he said that he was not aware of any cameras in center field, but this report speaks to the contrary, and it really does. And you have to wonder, what did Carlos Beltran tell Major League Baseball? Because obviously they had to sit down with him, and as I read, I've been doing a lot of reading here, perhaps there's a good chance that they broke him and they said, hey, look, we're going to levy a 1-year suspension on you. You could be out of a job as manager of the New York Mets. We know it's the job that you wanted. It may all go out the window unless you tell us what happened. And I think that's what happened here with Beltran. He had to admit to Major League Baseball what happened here. That's why there was no penalty on him. Should the Mets, and I think that's the big question here, that's what we're really trying to get to, is should the Mets fire Carlos Beltran? I know a lot of people brought that up on radio. I know a lot of people brought that up online. It's become a debate now over the last 24 hours since the story broke. What should the Mets do? Should they fire him? The fact that the Mets hired Beltran in the midst of this, and from what Brody Van Wagenen told the press, if we want to believe what he says, that the Mets never broached this subject with Carlos Beltran, and that it is a Houston Astros problem. Are you kidding me? It's a Houston Astros problem. No, Brody, it is now a Mets problem. It is a big-time Mets problem because this is a public relations disaster for the New York Metropolitans. Here they are. They bring in a a familiar face in Carlos Beltran, who was a great player for this organization for a very long time, and he is now embroiled in this scandal. And when the team comes together and meets in spring training next month, no one's going to talk about Jacob deGrom. No one's going to talk about whether the Mets have enough arms in the bullpen or whether they have a viable third baseman. No one's going to talk about any of that. The discussion will be, Carlos, what did you know and when did you know it? And what did you tell Major League Baseball? Brody, what are you going to do about your manager? And the truth is, the Mets are probably not going to do anything. They're not going to fire Carlos Beltran. They're going to stand by him. We all know that they will do that. But big question is, should they consider, if they haven't considered it already in the last 24 hours, moving on from Carlos Beltran? Keep in mind, they do have a bench coach in Hensley Mullins who was very well regarded among Major League Baseball inside baseball people as a guy who could be a very good manager, was a top candidate for the Yankees job a couple of years ago, was a candidate for the Giants job this year. He was a Giants bench coach for 10 years under Bruce Bochy. So he is a very highly regarded guy. He's the bench coach of this Mets team. Should the Mets just go right ahead and pull the plug on Beltran, go with Mullins, veteran guy, experienced guy, who certainly knows a little bit about managing games, I'm sure, from that standpoint, and just move on, clean the slate? There's nothing wrong with that, I think, if you're the New York Mets. Nothing at all. Yes, I understand that the baseball didn't want to go after players and didn't want to have to suspend players for various reasons. I totally understand that. But the facts are, Carlos Beltran may have been heavily involved. We can't deny that. We can't work around that. We can't pretend it didn't happen. It happened. And to be honest with you, the Mets might be better off moving on, cleaning the slate. As popular as Beltran is, as he was as a player, clean the slate and move on. That's all you can do, because you can't tolerate this kind of behavior for the Mets, especially if you're the Wilpons and you're about to sell the team. By the way, to Steve Cohen, you're about to sell the team to a new owner. What does he feel? How does he feel about this? That's another big thing. And Brody Van Wagenen, should he be fired for what happened here too? So there's so much to unwrap with this Mets situation right now. To sit here, and I've read comments from a lot of Mets fans saying, "Oh, this is not a Mets issue." It is a Mets issue. The guy that was involved, one of the veteran players that were involved in devising the scheme, is the manager of your baseball team. That's a problem. It is a big, big problem. We'll see what the Mets decide to do. As I said a moment ago, they're probably not going to do a thing with this at all. And we will see Carlos Beltran in the dugout for all the spring training games, all 162 games of the regular season. And I'm sure by April, May, this will be when the Mets are, on the middle of a 5-game losing streak or a 4 or 5-game winning streak. This will be long forgotten from that standpoint. It will be in the here and now then at that point. But this is a stain going into spring training for the Mets, and if they were smart, they would try to do something to clean this up. We'll see. Maybe they're having internal discussions as we speak, for that matter. So join the discussion, folks. Put your comments in the comment section. What do you think? What should the Mets do? Should they fire Carlos Beltran? Should they keep him, move on, accept the penalties as they are from Major League Baseball? The fact that Beltran gets no penalty at all, and just move on from that. Should they fire Brody Van Wagenen for this? Who knows? I don't know. Comment in the comment section below. We'll talk to you next time. Remember to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/OpenMicProgram, @OpenMicNJ, and also like and subscribe right here to the Sports Talk Nation. We'll talk to you next time.